Imagine for just a second waking up from a 2-year coma.
Right.
You open your eyes, and the world you knew is, oh, it's just entirely gone. You're physically broken. You're deeply disoriented.
Yeah, and half of your body just refuses to respond to your brain's command.
Exactly, leaving you struggling with a paralyzed, completely dead arm.
So, given all of that unimaginable physical and emotional trauma,
Yeah.
what is your very first priority?
Most people would assume, physical therapy or psychological counseling.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But what is the one thing you actually need above all else to feel safe in a world that's moved on without you?
Well, for Jason Matherson, the man at the center of today's deep dive, the answer isn't therapy at all.
No, it's not.
It is tracking down a deadly weapon.
It is a truly jarring juxtaposition, honestly. I mean, you have a man who is incredibly vulnerable, requiring constant around-the-clock care.
Right.
And his immediate visceral instinct is to acquire an instrument of absolute lethal power. He's barely tethered to reality, yet he is just singularly focused on armament.
It's wild, and it really sets the stage for one of the most intense, just uncomfortably intimate psychological portraits we've ever examined.
Absolutely.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are putting our focus on a highly specific, incredibly tense 72-hour window in Jason's life.
Just 3 days.
Just 3 days, yeah. We are going to unpack a remarkable sequence of events. We're going to follow Jason from a surreal Thursday morning trip to a gun shop and then a clothing store.
Right, going straight into a crushing, physically devastating, depressive crash on Friday.
Yeah, and finally, a highly volatile and frankly dangerous reawakening on Saturday morning.
And this 72-hour window,
Yeah.
it acts as a masterclass in understanding the nonlinear, deeply erratic nature of trauma recovery.
Yeah.
We so often want to believe that healing is like a straight line. You wake up, you do the work, you get better.
But Jason's journey shows us the terrifying reality.
Exactly. It is a pendulum swinging wildly between grasping for control and just completely collapsing under the weight of it.
So for you listening, we promise that this exploration is going to reveal how trauma and addiction aren't just, invisible mental battles.
No, they are intensely, undeniably physical ones.
We're talking about a journey full of terrifying whiplash, false senses of normalcy, and the desperate ways we try to regain control when our own bodies have completely betrayed us.
Well said.
So we drop right into Thursday morning. Jason wakes up, and it is a rough morning.
Very rough.
Part 4. Why he wanted the gun? She didn't know. When Jason woke, it was a toss-up whether or not he would remember anything about a gun store. His mother had slipped the yellow page out of his pocket and returned the brochure. It was a gamble, but she was hoping that Jason wouldn't notice it was gone. Jason was sitting at the kitchen table. He looked hungover. When his coffee cup was completely emptied, he acknowledged his mother. "Where's 200 Baker Street?" "The other side of South Street." "I have to go there." Gloria bit the inside of her cheek. She understood the importance of owning a gun, but it would be better if he didn't have one until he was fully recovered. "I know. I'll take you." They drove up South Street and found the gun shop without any problem. Jason climbed out and asked his mother to stay in the car. She gave him one last piece of advice. "Be careful." Jason entered the enormous shop filled with guns and ammo. Surveillance cameras recorded his encounter with the shop owner. "Afternoon." A large man perched behind a glass case greeted Jason from across the room. Jason nodded and smirked. Jason's dangling arm caught the man's attention and he asked, "Looking for a pistol?" "Yes." Jason approached the case and eyed a row of weapons lying on black velvet through the glass. Jason let out a little laugh, like a kid trying to keep a secret in. The shop owner has dealt with stoned teens before, but this was going to be a little tougher. He started counting down from 10 in his head, considering the man in front of him. "Are you looking for anything in particular, or just looking?" After a moment, Jason answered, "Yeah, is this HK-45 semi-automatic really $800? Jason laughed. The man looked at Jason with a blank stare. No need to piss this one off. However, he was in no mood for this today. He touched the stock of his favorite Colt just below the edge of the counter. He knew that Jason had a dead stare. There was nothing behind those eyes. "Sure is. Not a bargain, I know, but people still want them." Jason's eyes moved across the tall case behind the man, but couldn't focus on any of the price tags. "How about the AR-15 with a scope? Got one of those?" The man pointed to a case to his right and pulled a key ring off his belt. The case slid silently open, and there it was. Jason spotted it before the man put his hands on it. The gun was beautiful to Jason, who was smiling wildly and rocking back and forth. The man told Jason, "AR-15 tactical carbine, comes with a Colt 420 scope and a tactical sling. It is a pre-ban rifle, but this baby was redesigned to comply with the assault weapons ban." Before he could ask, the man said, $1,200. The man used a second key to unlock the gun from the post it was standing next to and pulled the weapon down. He slid the door closed and placed the rifle down between the two of them. Jason instinctively reached for it, but stopped when he realized that his dead arm wasn't complying. How could he get a rifle anyway? He has only one arm. "Forget that one. I'd rather have the 45. The man returned the rifle to the case and locked it up before returning to the row of pistols in the front case. "You in the service?" "I was." Jason gestured to his fatigues. "Look, buddy, I see all kinds." Jason nodded and smiled oddly, thinking, "You've never seen something like me. Comatose, dead-arm freak." The man placed the Heckler & Koch 45 on the glass case and Jason picked it up. The dangling price tag proved it was really $800. Spurred on by a cautious mother's phone call, the owner assured her if the prices didn't scare him off, then the buying of the waiting process would. Gloria was a little anxious in the car, not knowing how Jason would react. She kept the windows down and listened for trouble. All she heard was Jason shuffling back to the car, empty-handed. Part 5. Jason and his mother took a drive to a place called Real Men, which proved to be another clothing store. The prices scared Jason and he almost cried out, "Can't get a goddamn gun, much less clothes, if you don't have money." The clerk in the store was glad it didn't happen too. Jason followed his mother in and out of the displays and she asked if something was wrong when his face went blank. He remained like that until they got back out to the car. His internal dialogue translated into shock on his face. She picked out a lot of things and led him out to the car before she approached the register. When the sale was done and she was heading back out, the clerk asked, "Is he all right?" Gloria nodded. "He has the flu." Eyes followed them until their car was gone. Thursday came and went. Jason taking it with an extra dose of happiness and tried on his clothes, which did look nice on him now that he was clean-shaven. He was starting to feel normal again, like a junkie brought back from the dead after 2 years, but normal enough. Gloria spent the day straightening up in Jason's room since he was too far gone to do it himself. The floor was littered with price tags and discarded bags from various stores. She left him in the living room, reclining in his father's chair, eyes closed, but still seeing smiling faces. Jason didn't see his mother leave the house Friday. He slept past noon, waking with the heaviness no longer new to him. He woke on the floor in his bedroom, wrapped in the bed covers. He was in the yard behind the house, just about to the fence when she saw him. Gloria put her things down on the kitchen table and called to her son from the door. He stopped as if he was caught in the act, then turned and waved. He'd gone without an injection for the entire day. It was about 3 in the afternoon. Jason was depressed. She knew. He dragged himself into the kitchen that evening while Gloria was jotting down some numbers on a small pad. He sat down, holding his head in his hands so the weight wouldn't pull him to the floor. The heaviness was at its worst. She worked math on the pad and tossed it aside when she saw Jason slipping out of the chair. "Come back to bed, son." She tried to lift him, but only managed to hurt her back and make things even worse. Jason went to the floor, striking his head on the linoleum. She left him where he landed. Part 6. Saturday came and Jason cheered up. He was up early, expecting to see his mother in the kitchen finishing off her breakfast or getting ready to go out. He had even rushed to ensure he didn't miss her, taking only a half dose to take the edge off the nightmare he had the previous night. The morning suddenly looked brighter and the darkness was gone. He had found his fatigues in a pile of dirty laundry and was happy to see the pamphlet was still in his pocket. The graphics on the front made his heart leap. There were 2 unfurled American flags flanking the phrase, "Calling all vets." He felt pride for the first time since he enlisted 3 years before. He could hear Gloria in the front yard, moving the empty garbage can to the side of the house. He noticed that she had forgotten to empty the small wastebasket beside the telephone table. In it was a crumpled page from the Yellow Pages. He remembered it had a listing from H&L Guns and Ammo, 200 East Baker Street. Not much of a hiding place. He popped his head out the door eagerly. "Good morning." She smiled and pushed the can into its usual place. "Ready to go?"
He's described as looking hungover, which is a symptom of his intense medication regimen.
Right, he's on some heavy stuff.
Yeah. So he sits at the kitchen table, drains his coffee cup, and the very first thing out of his mouth isn't like a good morning to his mother, Gloria. It's a demand.
He just looks right at her and asks, "Where's 200 Baker Street?"
And Gloria's internal reaction in this exact second, I mean, it's a brilliant window into the quiet, suffocating panic of a caregiver.
Oh, for sure. She bites the inside of her cheek. She knows exactly what is at 200 Baker Street.
Because earlier, she had actually gone through his pockets and sneakily removed a crumpled yellow page listing for H&L Guns and Ammo.
Right. She even put the accompanying brochure back in his pocket, hoping against hope that if the actual address was gone, his brain would just, gloss over it.
That since he's still foggy, still recovering, he'd forget the location.
But the fog clears just enough.
It does. He remembers the address perfectly. He tells her, "I have to go there." And Gloria realizes, staring at him across the kitchen table, that she cannot physically or emotionally stop him.
She is completely outmatched.
Yeah. So she makes what seems to be a highly calculated, desperate gamble. She tells him, "I know, I'll take you."
Right. She decides to drive him to the gun shop herself.
And her logic here is that the high prices of the firearms and the mandatory waiting periods will act as a natural deterrent.
She is essentially banking on the bureaucracy of the retail world to do the parenting she feels incapable of doing in this moment.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I have to admit, I really struggle with Gloria's strategy here.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would.
To me, this feels exactly like a parent letting a child touch a hot stove to learn a lesson about heat.
Right. Right. You let them get burned so they don't do it again.
Exactly. But in this case, the stove is a highly lethal weapon, and the child is a traumatized combat veteran who is highly unstable.
Yeah.
Is driving him to the gun shop a brilliant, intuitive de-escalation tactic to maintain trust? Or is it just a terrible, catastrophic mistake waiting to happen?
I hear that, and it's so easy to judge her from the outside, but I think you're looking at this through a lens of everyday normalcy.
Okay, fair.
And that's just the wrong lens here. She isn't dealing with a toddler. She is dealing with a highly trained, volatile combat veteran who, despite his paralyzed arm, physically intimidates her.
Wow, yeah.
This isn't a lesson about touching a hot stove.
Yeah.
This is a hostage negotiation.
A hostage negotiation.
Exactly. This raises an incredibly important question about the illusion of control when dealing with severe, complex trauma.
Right.
Gloria is walking through a live minefield. If she outright refuses to take him, she risks triggering an explosive, unpredictable reaction.
He might just leave the house on his own.
Right. Disappear or become violent. By agreeing to take him, she maintains a fragile tether. She keeps him in the passenger seat of her car.
So she's betting everything on the assumption that his physical and financial limitations will stop the purchase.
Precisely. She is dealing with a man who is physically vulnerable but mentally completely fixated on a singular, dangerous goal.
Yeah.
She knows she can't break the fixation, so she tries to manage the environment around it.
Wow. Okay, I didn't think about it that way. She's keeping him in her line of sight, essentially acting as his escort to mitigate the danger.
Yeah.
It's a high-stakes gamble, but when you frame it as a hostage negotiation, it makes this eerie kind of sense. So they get in the car, they drive up South Street, and they find the shop without any problem.
Right.
Jason climbs out of the car, and he explicitly asks his mother to stay behind. She gives him one last piece of advice. She says, "Be careful."
And this is where the tension just ratchets up to an unbearable level.
Seriously, this desperate gamble from Gloria sets the stage for the actual confrontation inside the shop. This is the moment where Jason's internal, unresolved trauma violently collides with the physical reality of his broken body.
The details of this encounter are incredibly vivid, captured as if we were watching through the shop's surveillance cameras.
It really is.
It highlights the sheer friction between Jason's internal state and the external world.
It's totally cinematic. Gloria is waiting out in the car. She has the windows rolled all the way down, specifically so she can listen for trouble.
She is bracing for gunshots or screaming.
Yeah. And inside, Jason walks into this enormous shop filled with glass cases of guns and ammo. He is greeted by a large man perched behind a glass case. And Jason's behavior right off the bat is deeply unsettling.
Very. He nods and smirks.
The shop owner, whose perspective we actually get a glimpse into, immediately notices Jason's dangling, paralyzed left arm.
And the physical presentation here is crucial. Jason is wearing his old military fatigues. He is attempting to project the image of a capable soldier.
Right, but his body is damaged. His arm is completely dead, unresponsive, just hanging at his side.
Yeah. The shop owner, a man who clearly knows how to read people, asks, "Looking for a pistol?"
And Jason approaches the glass case where these sleek weapons are lying on black velvet. And here is a detail that just sends absolute chills down my spine.
The laugh.
Yes. As Jason eyes the weapons, he lets out this nervous little laugh. It's described like a kid trying to keep a secret in.
It is so incredibly eerie.
You have a grown man in combat fatigues, staring at lethal weapons, giggling like a toddler with a secret.
Yeah, and the shop owner, who has clearly dealt with stoned teenagers and erratic customers before, he instantly recognizes that this situation is entirely different.
He's much tougher.
He senses the danger so acutely that he literally begins counting backward from 10 in his head just to keep his own temper and fear in check.
I want to focus on that shop owner for a second because he becomes this fascinating, vital secondary character.
He really does. He is an observer, a gatekeeper of reality for Jason.
While he is counting down from 10, the owner casually lets his hand drop and touches the stock of his own favorite Colt, which is hidden just below the edge of the counter.
He is preparing for a life-or-death shootout while desperately trying to maintain a facade of retail normalcy.
Exactly. He asks Jason, "Are you looking for anything in particular or just looking?"
And Jason points to an HK-45 semi-automatic pistol.
He asks, with that same eerie laugh, if it is really $800.
Yeah.
The man just gives Jason a completely blank stare. He internally decides, no need to piss this one off.
Right.
But he also notes something terrifying about Jason. He looks into Jason's eyes and observes that Jason has a dead stare. He specifically notes that there was nothing behind those eyes.
Yeah.
I want to pause here. What exactly is the shop owner seeing? Because dead stare sounds like a horror movie trope, but I feel like there's real psychology happening here.
There absolutely is real psychology at play. What the shop owner is observing is a profound state of dissociation.
Okay.
We have to remember how the brain processes trauma. When someone undergoes a traumatic event, especially prolonged combat trauma followed by a 2-year medical coma, the brain's threat detection system, the amygdala, can get essentially stuck in the on position.
Like a smoke detector that just won't stop ringing.
Precisely. But when the body is overwhelmed and cannot fight or flee, the nervous system resorts to a freeze response, shutting down emotional bandwidth just to survive.
So his physical body is standing in a gun shop in Denver.
Right, but neurologically, his mind is trapped in a loop of combat, coma, and sheer terror. There's a profound emotional emptiness that the shop owner reads correctly as extreme volatility.
The lights are on, but the conscious, regulating part of Jason's brain isn't home.
That dead stare is the look of a nervous system that is completely detached from its immediate surroundings.
That makes the tension so much worse, knowing that he's functionally sleepwalking through a high-threat environment.
It's terrifying.
It really reminds me of a bomb defusal sequence. You have this massive shop owner, his hand hovering near his own hidden weapon, carefully choosing his words, trying to cut the right wire without triggering an explosion in a man who isn't even fully present.
And the owner confirms the $800 price tag for the .45.
And then Jason's eyes move past the handgun to the call cases behind the counter. He asks about an AR-15 with a scope.
And this is the moment where Jason's desire for ultimate control truly manifests.
Yeah.
He isn't just looking for a handgun for personal protection anymore. He wants a tactical combat rifle, a weapon of war.
The owner unlocks a case and brings it down. It's an AR-15 tactical carbine with a Colt 4x20 scope. It's described as beautiful.
As the owner brings it down, Jason's physical reaction changes entirely. He stops giggling. He is described as smiling wildly and rocking back and forth on his heels.
He is literally vibrating with anticipation. He's finally face-to-face with the object that he believes will fix him.
The owner tells him it's $1,200. He places the rifle down on the glass between them.
And Jason instinctively reaches for it. He goes to grab this beautiful, powerful weapon, but he stops.
He stops because he suddenly realizes his dead arm isn't complying.
His left arm is completely useless. The physical reality of his broken body crashes down on him.
Right.
I mean, how can he hold, let alone fire and reload, a tactical rifle with only one functioning arm?
It is a moment of profound, breathtaking tragedy. Think about the irony here.
Yeah.
Jason has come to this shop seeking an instrument of ultimate power, a tool that will restore his sense of agency and protect him from the terrors of his mind.
But in the exact fraction of a second he reaches for that power, he is betrayed by his own lack of physical control.
His paralyzed arm serves as a harsh, unyielding boundary between his psychological desires and his physical reality.
The coma didn't just take 2 years of his life. It permanently stripped him of the physical capacity to be the soldier he still thinks he is.
It's devastating. He is forced to face his own profound limitation in front of a complete stranger.
The illusion completely shatters. He immediately backpedals. He says, forget that one. I'd rather have the .45.
He pivots back to the handgun, picking up the Heckler & Koch .45 with his one good hand.
And the dangling price tag confirms the $800 cost. The owner, trying to bridge the gap, asks if Jason was in the service noticing the fatigues.
Jason says he was.
The owner replies, look, buddy, I see all kinds. And Jason just nods and smiles, this odd, private smile, thinking to himself, you've never seen something like me. Comatose, dead-armed freak.
That internal monologue is heartbreaking.
It really is.
It reveals how deeply internalized his physical brokenness has become. He doesn't just see himself as injured. He views himself as a monster, a complete anomaly.
Yeah.
And ultimately, this agonizing interaction proves that Gloria's gamble actually pays off.
It does.
The reality check of his physical limitation with the AR-15, combined with the sheer unattainable cost of the weapons, works exactly as she hoped.
Jason shuffles back out to the car, his dead stare still intact, completely empty-handed. Crisis averted, right? She won the gamble. But the reality check of the gun shop doesn't actually end Jason's quest to reclaim his identity.
Not at all.
He failed to buy lethal power, the physical armor he wanted. So, what do they do next? Gloria and Jason immediately pivot to a different kind of armor.
Which brings us to Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, the very next stop they make is at a clothing store.
And the irony of the name of this store is almost too much to handle.
You literally can't make it up. The store is called Real Men.
Real men.
They walk into Real Men, and I have to admit, when I first read this, I was so confused by the jarring thematic shift.
It is quite a pivot.
We've just gone straight from a tense life-or-death standoff over a $1,200 tactical assault rifle to a mother taking her adult son to try on slacks.
Right.
Help me make sense of that. Why go buy pants right after failing to buy an AR-15?
It feels disjointed, but psychologically, it is a perfect, desperate pivot. In psychology, there is a concept called identity foreclosure, where a person prematurely commits to an identity without exploring options.
Got it.
Jason's identity as a capable, armed soldier has just been violently foreclosed upon by his own paralyzed arm. He cannot be that man anymore.
So what does a person do when their primary identity is shattered?
They immediately try to construct a new one. If he can't wear the armor of a soldier, he will try to put on the uniform of a functional civilian.
The psychological intensity doesn't drop at all.
No, it just mutates from seeking physical dominance to seeking social normalcy.
Okay, that makes total sense. He's scrambling for a new mask, but the process of buying this new mask is just as fraught.
Absolutely.
Jason is immediately hit with massive sticker shock in the clothing store. He looks at the price tags on these shirts and slacks, and his internal dialogue is screaming.
He thinks, can't get a goddamn gun, much less clothes if you don't have money.
And this triggers something intense. His internal shock translates into a terrifying physical reaction. His face goes completely, terrifyingly blank.
He just stands there in the middle of real men, totally frozen, completely unresponsive.
The clerk in the store is absolutely terrified by this large, blank-faced man in military fatigues just staring at the wall.
Yeah, and Gloria, again, acting as the frantic buffer between Jason and the world, covers for him by telling the clerk, he has the flu.
He has the flu. It's such a desperate maternal lie to cover up a profound psychological break.
It really is. What we're seeing here with Jason freezing up is the exact same neurological mechanism we discussed at the gun store, but triggered by a different threat.
Wait, really? A price tag on a shirt triggers the same response as a gun store? How?
Yes, because to Jason's hypervigilant amygdala, the threat isn't violence this time. It is powerlessness.
Ah, okay.
The financial shock acts as a very harsh grounding mechanism. In the gun shop, he was powerless because of his physical body. Here, he is powerless because of his financial reality.
He realizes he has no money, no job, and no way to survive independently.
When he sees the price tag, his brain sends a signal that he cannot survive in this environment, which triggers that parasympathetic freeze response.
Yeah.
He is a man completely stripped of his role in a capitalist society.
That is fascinating. The brain doesn't distinguish between the threat of a bullet and the existential threat of poverty when it's that damaged.
Exactly. And if we look at the sociology of reentry for combat veterans, especially those who have been out of the world for years, this is a classic brutal hurdle.
Yeah.
The civilian world operates on rules, prices, polite conversation, commerce, small talk that seem utterly absurd and insurmountable when you were still operating on basic survival instincts.
And we have to talk about the irony of the store's name, Real Men.
Oh, absolutely.
Because while he's frozen there, Jason is experiencing profound emasculation on every conceivable level. He has a dead arm. He can't afford to buy his own clothes.
He couldn't buy a gun to protect himself.
And he is literally being led around a store named Real Men and dressed by his mother. He is the complete antithesis of the traditional, capable, independent archetype that the store is trying to sell.
It is a devastating juxtaposition. The clothes they end up buying function purely as a temporary costume of normalcy.
Gloria pays for the clothes, leads him back to the car, and takes him home.
And it's interesting because once they are home and Jason is clean-shaven and dressed up in his new slacks and shirt on Thursday afternoon, he actually feels something close to okay.
Yeah, he looks in the mirror, and the description is that he feels like a junkie brought back from the dead after 2 years, but normal enough.
But we have to look at what's fueling that feeling.
Right. He is high on an extra dose of his medication, the Barbicaine, and he is wearing the literal costume of a functioning civilian. It's entirely superficial.
Completely.
As I was thinking about this, an analogy sort of hit me. It's like putting fresh, expensive wallpaper over a crumbling, structurally unsound wall.
Ooh, I like that.
From a distance, in the right light, it looks great. It looks like a brand new room. But the foundation is entirely rotted, the studs are giving way, and it's only a matter of time before the wall collapses completely under its own weight.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. The fresh wallpaper hides the rot, but it doesn't fix it.
Yeah.
And we get a beautiful, heartbreaking visual representation of this false recovery right in the text. Gloria spends the rest of Thursday straightening up his room because Jason is simply too out of it to do it himself.
The floor of his bedroom is littered with the cut price tags and discarded shopping bags from the clothing store.
Meanwhile, Jason is reclining in his father's chair in the living room, eyes closed, actively hallucinating smiling faces due to the Barbicane,
Wow.
while the literal trash of his brief foray into consumer normalcy litters the floor of his childhood bedroom.
The juxtaposition between his internal chemically induced peace and the physical debris of his failure to integrate is just striking.
It really is.
But the fundamental problem with the costume is that eventually it has to come off. The wallpaper has to peel.
Right.
The temporary, drug-fueled high of Thursday's normalcy only sets the stage for a brutal, inevitable physiological and psychological crash the very next day.
Which brings us to Friday.
And Friday is a completely different kind of nightmare.
Friday is a study in absolute dissent. If Thursday was about attempting to force external normalcy by buying guns and clothes, Friday is the internal reality asserting total dominance over Jason's body.
Jason doesn't even see his mother leave the house on Friday morning. He sleeps straight past noon.
Yeah.
When he finally wakes up, he isn't even in his bed. He wakes up on the floor of his bedroom, tightly wrapped in the bed covers like a cocoon.
And crucially, he has gone the entire day without his Barbicane injection.
By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a severe, overwhelming depression sets in. But, and I really want to dig into this, the way this depression is described is incredibly physical. It's not described as a sadness or a melancholy or feeling blue. It is described repeatedly as a literal heaviness.
Yes, and this is where we need to look at the pharmacology of what's happening to him.
Okay.
We know Jason is on Barbicane. Now, while Barbicane is the name used here, contextually it functions as a highly potent, heavily sedating painkiller with barbiturate-like properties.
Something prescribed for profound trauma.
Right, something that severely depresses the central nervous system. When a drug like that begins to leave the system, the body doesn't just go back to normal. It rebounds violently.
This is what shocked me so much reading through these accounts.
Yeah.
Depression is usually talked about as an emotional state, a numbness, or a deep sorrow. But for Jason, in this withdrawal state, it is described as a literal, tangible change in the gravitational pull of the room.
It is a physical weight trying to pull his mass down into the center of the earth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. He drags himself out to the kitchen that evening. Gloria is sitting at the table, doing math on a small notepad, trying to figure out their finances. Jason sits down in a chair opposite her, and the gravity is so intense that he has to physically hold his own head up with his functioning hand, just so the sheer weight of his skull won't pull his entire body out of the chair and onto the floor.
We are witnessing the brutal physiological reality of chemical withdrawal compounding with profound psychological trauma.
It's intense.
His brain chemistry is completely crashing.
Yeah.
His dopamine and serotonin levels are plummeting, while his central nervous system, which has been artificially muffled by the Barbicane, is suddenly overwhelmed by the sensory input of reality.
So this heaviness is his entire physical being shutting down under the weight of an unmedicated existence.
He literally lacks the neurochemical energy to defy gravity.
The scene in the kitchen is just gut-wrenching. The heaviness reaches its absolute peak. Gloria looks up from her math pad and she sees Jason literally slipping out of his chair, succumbing to this invisible gravity.
She says softly, "Come back to bed, son."
She gets up and tries to physically lift him. She grabs onto this large, muscular man who is essentially dead weight, but she can't lift him.
No, she pulls, and she only manages to hurt her own back, making the situation even worse.
The grip fails, and Jason falls entirely out of the chair, striking his head hard on the kitchen linoleum.
It's a sickening moment. And what does Gloria do next?
She just leaves him there.
Yeah.
She is in physical pain, she is emotionally exhausted, and she just leaves him lying exactly where he landed on the cold floor.
I want us to really sit with this moment because it is vital to understanding the entire dynamic of this 72-hour period.
Okay.
We see a profound, tragic mirroring here between mother and son. Her physical inability to lift him off the linoleum perfectly mirrors her emotional inability to save him from his trauma.
Wow. Wait, say that again. She can't physically lift him.
And she can't emotionally lift him either. Exactly.
That's incredibly powerful.
Think about everything she did on Thursday. All the clothes she bought him, the car rides, covering for him with the clerk, managing his medications. It was all the illusion of lifting him.
She was trying to prop him up with external things.
But in the end, when the drugs wear off and the trauma takes over, he is simply too heavy. She cannot carry the weight of his brokenness.
Gravity always wins.
The stark realism of him being left on the cold floor represents absolute rock bottom for both of them. It is the complete collapse of the illusion they tried to build the day before.
That is incredible. The physical failure mirroring the emotional failure. He is literally and metaphorically on the floor.
Yeah.
It doesn't get lower than lying in your mother's kitchen, hitting your head on the floor, and being left there because you are simply too heavy a burden for the person who loves you most to lift.
It really doesn't.
But, as is so often the case with addiction and severe trauma cycles, hitting rock bottom rarely means staying there peacefully.
No, it doesn't.
Hitting the bottom creates a terrifying momentum for a violent swing in the exact opposite direction. Which brings us to Saturday morning.
Saturday morning arrives, and the shift in tone is so abrupt it gives you whiplash. The darkness and the gravity of Friday seem to have vanished. The morning suddenly looked brighter, and the darkness was gone.
It's complete 180. Jason gets up early. He's motivated. He doesn't want to miss his mother before she goes out to run errands.
He takes what is described as a half dose of his medication.
Right, just enough to take the edge off the horrific nightmares from the previous night, but not enough to incapacitate him or make him hallucinate. He is functioning.
He goes to a pile of dirty laundry and digs through it. He pulls out his old military fatigues, not the civilian clothes they just bought, but his fatigues.
He puts them on, and he feels a surge of genuine emotion. In the pocket, he finds a pamphlet that he had received from a homeless man earlier in the week.
And we need to look closely at this pamphlet. It says, "Calling all vets" in bold letters, and it is flanked by 2 unfurled American flags.
It's advertising a Veterans Day reunion at a local park.
Right.
When he looks at those graphics, at those flags, his heart actually leaps. The text tells us that for the first time since he enlisted 3 years prior, Jason feels a surge of genuine pride. Yeah.
He is standing there, feeling proud, and he hears his mom outside moving the empty garbage cans. And as he stands near the telephone table in the hallway, he notices something.
Gloria had taken the big trash cans out, but she had forgotten to empty the small wastebasket inside the house.
Exactly. He looks down into the basket, and sitting right on top of the trash is the crumpled yellow page from the phone book.
The listing for H&L Guns and Ammo at 200 East Baker Street.
The very piece of paper Gloria had tried so desperately to hide from him at the beginning of this entire 72-hour cycle.
The catalyst for the gun store trip.
Exactly. He sees the address, his secret hiding place compromised, but he has it again. He pops his head out the front door looking eager and energetic and calls out to his mom, "Good morning."
She smiles, probably relieved to see him off the floor.
And he says, "Ready to go."
Yep.
Okay, so I need you to help me interpret this. What does this all mean? Is this genuine recovery?
What do you think?
Because to me, this sudden burst of energy, this pride, it feels deeply wrong. It feels like the most terrifying moment of the entire story. It is.
It reminds me of a dying car engine. You know when an engine is basically dead, but suddenly it revs to 10,000 RPMs?
Yeah, to an untrained ear, it sounds like incredible roaring power.
But if you know engines, you know it's not power. It's the sound of a machine that has lost its governor and is moments away from a catastrophic explosion.
Your analogy is absolutely spot on. It sounds like power, but it is actually the precursor to destruction.
Wow.
This is absolutely not genuine recovery. This is a highly dangerous synthesis of triggers masquerading as purpose.
Let's deeply analyze what is actually fueling this Saturday morning reawakening, because it is terrifying when you break it down.
Okay, first, look at the physical costume he chooses. He puts the military fatigues back on.
Unlike the civilian slacks from Real Men, which highlighted his powerlessness and triggered a freeze response.
Right. The dirty fatigues reconnect him to a time when he had status, a role, and a clear sanctioned capacity for violence.
Right. He's rejecting the civilian identity and retreating back into the soldier identity.
Exactly. Second, the pamphlet, Calling All Vets. It provides him with an immediate structured destination and an identity that is being validated.
He's a veteran, and he is being called. It gives him a mission.
But we have to look at the unstable foundation this new pride is built upon. It is built on unresolved, severe combat trauma.
Yeah.
It is chemically stabilized by a half dose of mind-altering barbicaine. Just enough to give him energy, but not enough to numb him.
And the final, most volatile catalyst is the discovery of the gun shop address in the trash.
Finding that yellow page must feel like a sign to him.
Oh, absolutely.
It reinforces his paranoia. His mother's hiding things from him, trying to control him, which reinforces his need to arm and protect himself.
It simultaneously proves to him that he can overcome obstacles, even his mother's attempts to manage him.
When you combine the identity of the fatigues, the mission of the pamphlet, the chemical tweak of the half-dose, and the target of the gun store address, you have a recipe for absolute disaster.
It is completely disguised to Jason as a good day.
He feels purposeful, but his purpose is entirely divorced from a healthy reality. He is an engine revving to 10,000 RPMs, and he is about to blow.
The emotional whiplash of these 3 days is just staggering to process.
Truly.
To go from demanding a weapon, to freezing in a clothing store, to being crushed by the gravity of depression on the kitchen floor, to this terrifying, hyper-focused reawakening.
It's a lot.
Okay, let's take a breath and recap the intense journey of this deep dive. We started on Thursday with the incredible cinematic tension of the gun shop, watching Jason's mind battle his paralyzed arm over a tactical rifle while the shop owner counted backward from 10.
We moved to the superficial, fragile costume of normalcy at the Real Men clothing store, where a price tag triggered a total system shutdown.
We felt the literal gravitational crush of Friday, ending with the profound metaphor of Jason abandoned on the kitchen linoleum because his mother could not lift his weight.
And finally, we witnessed the highly volatile, falsely empowering spark of Saturday morning, fueled by dirty military fatigues and a patriotic pamphlet.
It is a profound, exhausting look at how desperately a fractured mind seeks external stabilization.
And if we connect this back to you, the listener, and ask why this highly specific extreme narrative matters, it's because the underlying mechanics are universally human.
Everyone, at some point in their lives, tries to use external fixes to solve massive internal voids.
We've all done it in smaller ways.
Right. We might not be trying to buy a combat rifle to cure complex PTSD, but we buy a new, expensive outfit to feel confident for a presentation when we are deeply foundationally insecure about our abilities.
We seek out a new relationship to avoid being alone with our own intrusive thoughts.
We use a substance, a purchase, a job title to construct a reality that makes us feel safe and grounded when internally we feel like we are in a terrifying freefall.
Jason's story is just this basic human tendency to seek external armor, magnified to a tragic life and death extreme.
That is such a powerful takeaway, the external props we use to hold up the crumbling walls of our own psyche, which leaves us with a final, lingering thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. Look closely at how external symbols, a deadly weapon sitting behind glass, a fresh, expensive shirt with a price tag, a crumpled piece of yellow paper in the trash, a patriotic pamphlet with flags, have absolute dictatorial control over Jason's internal emotional state.
He swings violently from despair to elation, based entirely on what he is holding, what he is wearing, or what he is looking at.
So if a person's entire will to live, their entire sense of self, relies entirely on props from the outside world, what happens when they run out of props?
What happens when the stores close, the uniform doesn't fit anymore, or the money finally runs out?
It's a question of where our foundation truly lies, and what happens when the external world can no longer hold our weight.
Absolutely.
Something to think about the next time you find yourself reaching for an external fix to solve an internal problem. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and until next time, take care of yourselves.
This is Troy. I wanted to thank you for listening and hope that you tune in for my weekly presentation of In Darkness We Sleep. Vocals by Eric Neubauer and Troy St. James. Music and episode art provided by Robert McNichol. I can be contacted directly at troystjames@cox.net. This audio podcast is produced by Troy St. James, copyright 2012. Have a good night.